Greetings, everyone. It's time for another Mercy Talk with Kirkwood and Nathan. Today, I want to talk about the exhorter and mercy pairing. And I'm thinking of the context of marriage, but it probably doesn't need to be marriage per se, but the pairing of those two gifts. Felt like the Lord has sort of highlighted that for me. Kirkwood is a mercy, and his wife, Donna, is an exhorter, or we believe she's an exhorter. Who can know these things for certain? And so we're going to use a few examples from their life as we share. But I wanted to talk first. So this will be a mercy perspective on the exhorter as well. But I wanted to talk about a few thoughts about the exhorter that I've had on my mind. Number one, in the list of the gifts, the exhorter is in the middle. I remember Arthur saying somewhere that the giver stands alone in terms of not being paired with any of the other gifts. And that's true, but another interesting kind of thing in the list of gifts is that the exhorter is fourth. They're right in the middle. And I think that speaks to the exhorter being in the center, and that is the exhorter. When I think of exhorters, I think of influence, and they influence by proximity or by geography. There's a proximal influence that the exhorter has, and that they are more connected geographically, if you will, to everyone else. They have less isolation or distinctness. All the other ones have a distinct aspect, I think, that kind of pushes them away. But the exhorter, they're in the middle. And for that reason, they influence and do it so well, so broadly and so well. A couple similarities that I've thought of between the mercy and the exhorter. One, the main one is relationships. Both have so much favor with people. We tend to be liked. Relationship is a vehicle for us. And that's good. It can be difficult if there's strained relationships because a relationship is the vehicle for our gift. When there's strain in that, it can really block what we carry or feel like it's going to block what we carry. So our life-giving and transfer is very much related to relationships. And I would say the birthright or whatever, I don't know if that's the right word, the birthright for exhorter mercy pairing is in the province of relationships. The mercy going a little deeper in relationships, one-on-one focus, the exhorter broader. But you bring those together and you have an amazing capacity to do both. Kirkwood, we've used the example of Kirkwood. You guys lived in Scotland for a season, and they were reintroducing the beaver to the rivers of Scotland. And there's this picture that we had thought of the beaver, building dams, and alongside of the rushing streams, there's this ability to create these ecosystems, which for us anyway speaks to the mercies, building smaller communities that go at a slower pace and that provide for some of the relational dynamics that you can't have in a
provide still waters.
Yes, right. So you've got the fast moving stream of the prophet and the exhorter, and then you have the slower pace. And it's not to say one is better or worse. It's just they're both needed. In the church, you need them both.
Absolutely.
Now I want to mention a couple differences. One, I think, is in the area of vision. As a mercy, I say this, that I feel like I've lived life backwards. So I think I do have vision. I just think the vision that's rooted in my spirit is not often apparent to my soul. And so I feel like when I'm allowing my spirit to go first, the soul feels like he's behind and doesn't have the data needed. And I'm figuring out months later, this is what's going on, But I think the exhorter is much more visionary in terms of being able to articulate and see clearly. So quick review what I wanted you to share about you and Donna and your time in Africa. That first of all, the Lord, what he did with you in allowing her to kind of share that, and then once you got there, both of those two dynamics.
Yeah. Well, as Nathan said, we spent a season. We lived in Scotland for 8 years, and it was an amazing time in our lives. And I think just God having us there, and our 2 children were born there. An amazing place. I think has for birthing, for family. It was incredible. It was just blessed us.
Jealous.
Yeah. But while there, we met a couple actually who had escaped the genocide in Rwanda, and had, through a series of events, we got to know them pretty well, and were really impressed with their lives and their hearts. And they went back to Rwanda to help rebuild the country, basically, do their part. At their going away meeting, their send off, we kind of said, hey, well, someday we'll come out and visit you, as you do, but never thought that we would. 10 years later, living here in Reading, and I had a dream about that God had put a desire, a purpose in my wife's heart, and that I was to lay down my life and support that. And in the dream, I somehow knew that it was in the context of marriage that this purpose was to be carried out, fulfilled. But also in the dream, at the time, it looked like I knew my wife was in her 20s before we actually knew each other. And so when I woke up, I'm like, we need to pray about this. What was it in your 20s that you had a desire to do? And, there's something about this. Well, we ended up realizing that she had gone to a missions conference and she had desired to go to Africa. So that began this whole series of pressing into that, and discovered that, okay, Rwanda, we know this couple, et cetera, et cetera. So it seemed right. We put fleeces out, got complete confirmation about that.
Please God, no.
Yeah, well, it was very interesting, because I love traveling and I love cultures, but Africa in general had never been on my kind of bucket list. But I knew that this was from God. I knew that God was directing us, and I think talking about the Mercy Exhorter mix, there was something about that I realized that was going on for that God wanted to establish and wanted to bless and bring out this in Donna. And then part of that reality was me being willing to kind of sacrifice my agenda and trust God. And it built a trust from her trusting me, and of course trusting the Lord with her heart. And some of the challenges that we had as a result, then talking about vision, she was very uncomfortable not knowing what we were going to do over there. And this is where, again, I think that's the exhorter thing, wanting to know what we're going to do, have a vision.
Yeah.
I had a complete peace that God was going to reveal that in his timing.
Well, this speaks to me of Arthur's comment about messy mercies, which is there is a chaos, so forth, because as it were, we live life backwards, or we're living life with things in our spirit that we don't have a difficult time articulating. But there's a higher comfort level then with uncertainty.
Uncertainty, yeah.
And so you were a couple things that highlighted to me as you're talking. Number one, you stepped away from the patriarchal aspect of the culture and enabled your wife to articulate a vision.
Yeah.
That, number one, I think, is a picture of the Mercy male. There's, it's a non-traditional masculine expression.
Yeah.
Number two, your choice to do that gave your wife the opportunity to exercise her design and gift in articulating a vision that God had put in her, and to not just say it, but do it.
Do it, yeah.
And that, when we do a thing and express our gift in a way, there's a sense in which we come to know God and ourselves in a way that you can't know any other way except by physically taking action in that. And so you provided a context for her to do that. And then thirdly, as you're there, you didn't need the vision to look as clear. Yeah. You were more comfortable with and ultimately, if I could summarize some things, you guys had an amazing impact on some groups of people who were pretty challenging groups. And then you guys went back 6 years later and you're able to see some ongoing fruit. And I think there's just a picture there of the Mercy Exhorter potential.
Yeah.
There's this anointing for community,
Yeah.
for connection. The mercy, building ecosystems.
Yeah.
And going deep with individuals and building ecosystems. And then the exhorter influencing.
Yeah.
And Donna's exhorter gift provided opportunity for you as a mercy to do your ecosystems, but it provided an influence and a breadth and a connection with some higher echelons and so forth that maybe as an individual you wouldn't have had.
Absolutely.
There was access. There was I think there's so much to draw from this story.
Well, and as you said, that pairing and all the time, just having to really press into trusting God, because ultimately it was 9 months before the opportunity presented itself that I believe that had to do with, what God had put in Donna. It was basically overseeing a vulnerable women's ministry that they made bagels. It was an amazing, incredible ministry. And there was a restaurant as a result. When the couple that were overseeing it, that had started it, were going back to the States, they needed people to continue it. And they came to us, and I knew in my spirit, like, this is what we came for. I mean, for her, interestingly enough. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, it took 9 months, and it took 9 months of living there, having to wrestle with what are we doing here? But we were getting to know the culture. We're getting to know real people. We were, for an American, we didn't have a car for 9 months. So we had to walk places. We had to do like everybody else did. So it actually really integrated us in the culture. And,
well, in a sense, you had to slow down, if you will.
We had to slow down.
Enter into one of those side current eddy things.
Absolutely. And it wasn't any less purposeful than having it was very, very profound in this time. And but what I wanted to say was, as we did that, as we stepped into that, and we did things together, but a lot of it was her, and she was, talk about fulfillment. She, I don't think, had this thing in her heart, and she was so fulfilled about this task, this purpose, and she loved these women, and because of her giftings, they were able to surpass kind of what the limit had been, kind of there before. So because of her belief in them and her giftings, the whole ministry thing was even more so. So it was incredible. But what's interesting then is that God presented something that was a complete surprise to me and my giftings. I do landscape design. I have a landscape architecture degree, and the timing of this, you couldn't have planned this. They have that degree. It's called environmental design at the university in Rwanda, in Kigali. And I happened to be there at the right time. We had a home group from the church meeting at our house, and the leader of that home group was the department head of the creative design department. They needed a landscape architect basically to teach the first students that were going to be graduating with an environmental design degree. And so all of a sudden, an opportunity for me and my giftings and my passions came about. And you talk about influence, it was incredible.
You could do your teaching and your ecosystems in a place of influence that was totally unanticipated and unplanned.
Absolutely. And even though I was very fulfilled, again, in this whole thing of supporting my wife, anyway, it was incredible.
This is, I want to summarize a couple things. So we're talking about some differences, some similarities with Mercies and Exhorters. We've got the vision, and I think your story shows aspects of both.
Yeah.
You gave a context for your wife's vision. Orientation, I think the exhorter is more looking forward, and the mercy in some way might be looking backward a bit. And timing, we didn't have to touch on this too much. Maybe we'll do another one. But the exhorter going faster and the mercy going slower, and there can be such a beauty of the meshing of those. Absolutely. It can be very much a challenge relationally to deal with that timing difference.
Yeah.
And yet, if both can engage and synchronize with each other, there's incredible benefit to the marriage, to the kingdom,
absolutely,
and so forth. So we bless you, Mercy Exhorters, in your marriages and in your partnerings, wherever God has you, in Jesus' name.
Come on.